So I walked up to the counter, totally prepared.
You had your sentence ready in your head?
Oh, I had a perfect script. And then the guy said, "How's your day going?" instead of, "What do you want?" And my brain just crashed. Like a slow computer from 1998.
Complete system failure. All the vocabulary just vanished.
Exactly. The little dictionary in my brain went on strike.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast, your cozy little place to learn easy English through real, everyday conversations. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Liam. Today, we are recording a B2 Upper Intermediate episode. We are talking about something every language learner struggles with at some point. How to stop translating, how to think in English, and how to speak more naturally.
It is such a huge topic. As always, we will start with a real-life conversation between Liam and me. Then, we will slow down and break down the most useful phrases so you can use them yourself.
But first, our question of the day. We want you to answer this in the comments. When you practice English by yourself, do you prefer to talk out loud in the shower? Or do you practice silently in your head before you go to sleep?
I am definitely a shower talker. The acoustics make my pronunciation sound amazing. Let us know your answer in the comments. Now, let's get into the scene.
You know, Olivia, I was thinking about my Spanish classes lately. I feel like I have hit a wall. I know the grammar, but when I try to speak, I still translate in my head, every single sentence.
Oh, that is the most exhausting phase of learning a language. It takes so much energy. You hear a question, you translate it to your native language, you form the answer, and then you translate it back.
Yes, and by the time I am ready to answer, the other person has already changed the subject. I feel like I am always 5 seconds behind the conversation.
I used to do exactly the same thing when I was learning French. I would script my entire coffee order in my head before walking into the cafe. But if the barista asked a surprise question, I would completely draw a blank. My mind would just go empty.
It is terrifying. You just stand there looking at them, hoping the right word will magically fall from the sky.
And it never does. The floor feels very seen because I just stare at it in panic. But eventually, I realized something important. You don't need perfect grammar to get your point across.
That is very true. Sometimes we care too much about being perfect. We constantly second-guess ourselves before we even open our mouths. Wait, is it in the table or on the table? And then we say nothing.
Exactly. You just have to trust yourself. When I stopped worrying about tiny mistakes, my French actually got better. You cannot beat yourself up every time you use the wrong preposition.
It is a process. But how do you actually make that switch? How do you finally sound natural instead of sounding like a textbook?
For me, I had to learn to keep it simple. If I didn't know a complicated word, I would just use 3 simple words to explain it. You don't always need the fancy vocabulary.
Right. If you forget the word for vacuum cleaner, you can just say, "the loud machine that eats dirt from the carpet." People will understand.
Exactly. And that takes the pressure off. Once you relax, you start to find your flow. The words come more easily because you are not stressed.
Another thing that really helps is listening to how people actually speak. In textbooks, conversations are very formal. But in real life, you need to pick up on the little filler words people use.
That is a great point. And that is actually a big cultural difference. In some cultures, people are very direct. Silence is totally fine. But in other places, people use a lot of small words like, well, you know, and I mean, to fill the quiet spaces.
Those tiny words are the secret. They give you a second to think without creating awkward silence. When you learn to use them, you instantly sound more like a local.
And a great way to practice that at home is to think out loud. When you are cooking or cleaning, just describe what you are doing in English.
I am chopping the onion. The onion is making me cry. Why do bad things happen to good people? Just like that.
Exactly like that. It trains your brain to connect actions directly to English without the translation step. But you have to be patient. You cannot force it. You can't just wake up one day and decide to be fluent.
No, it happens slowly. And then, one day, you are watching a movie or talking to a friend, and you realize you understood everything without translating.
It is the best feeling in the world. Suddenly, all the pieces click. It all makes sense, and you realize your brain is finally working in two languages.
I can't wait for that to happen with my Spanish. For now, I will just keep talking to my kitchen appliances. The toaster is a great listener.
It never interrupts.
Welcome to the breakdown. This is where we step out of the scene and look closely at the useful phrases we used.
We have 12 fantastic phrases today to help you talk about learning, thinking, and speaking. Let's start with the first one. When Liam was complaining about his Spanish, he said, "I still translate in my head."
To translate in your head means to change words from one language to another silently inside your mind before you speak.
You can also say, "I do mental translation," or "I translate back and forth."
Translate in your head is the most common and casual. Mental translation sounds a little more academic or formal. For example, try not to translate in your head. Just look at the picture and say the word.
Moving on. I was talking about the cafe and I said, "I would completely draw a blank."
To draw a blank means you suddenly forget everything, and your mind goes completely empty. You can't remember a word or a fact.
You can also say, "My mind went blank," or "I totally forgot."
I totally forgot is very standard. Draw a blank is more visual and expresses that feeling of sudden panic. Like, I tried to introduce my boss, but I drew a blank and forgot his name.
Next, I told Liam, "You don't need perfect grammar to get your point across."
To get your point across means to successfully communicate your idea to someone, even if your words aren't perfect.
You can also say, "To make yourself understood," or "to communicate your message."
Get your point across sounds very natural and focused on the result. Make yourself understood is a bit more formal. For example, my Japanese isn't great, but I can usually get my point across with hand gestures.
After that, Liam was talking about doubt. He said, "We constantly second-guess ourselves."
To second-guess yourself means to doubt a decision or an action right after you make it. In language learning, it means questioning if you used the right word instead of just speaking.
You can also say, "To doubt yourself," or "to overthink."
Doubt yourself is a general feeling of insecurity. Second-guess yourself is specifically about questioning your own choices in the moment. Like, don't second-guess yourself on the exam. Your first answer is usually right.
Then I gave some advice. I said, "You cannot beat yourself up every time you use the wrong preposition."
To beat yourself up means to criticize yourself too harshly or be too strict with yourself when you make a mistake.
You can also say, "To be hard on yourself," or "to punish yourself."
Be hard on yourself is gentle and common. Beat yourself up is a strong, colorful idiom that shows you are really attacking your own confidence. For example, you failed the driving test, but don't beat yourself up. You will pass next time. Next, I asked Olivia how to fix the problem, and I said, "How do you finally sound natural?"
To sound natural means to speak in a way that is smooth and relaxed, similar to how a native speaker would talk, rather than sounding like a robot or a textbook.
You can also say to sound fluent or to speak smoothly.
Sound fluent focuses on your skill level. Sound natural focuses on the comfortable, easy feeling of the conversation. Like, using contractions like don't and can't will help you sound natural.
And Olivia answered me by saying, "For me, I had to learn to keep it simple."
To keep it simple means to avoid making things too complicated. Use basic words and short sentences instead of trying to be fancy.
You can also say to not overcomplicate things, or to stick to the basics.
Keep it simple is the most encouraging and common advice. It sounds very friendly. Stick to the basics sounds a bit more like a rule. For example, if you are giving a presentation in English, don't use huge words. Just keep it simple.
Then Olivia talked about what happens when you relax. She said, once you relax, you start to find your flow.
To find your flow means to reach a state where speaking becomes easy, continuous, and rhythmically smooth, without stopping to think too much.
You can also say to find your rhythm, or to get into the groove.
Find your rhythm is similar, but often used for music or sports. Find your flow is perfect for speaking and writing. Like, the first 5 minutes of the interview were scary, but then I found my flow.
Next, we talked about listening. I said, you need to pick up on the little filler words people use.
To pick up on something means to notice or learn something naturally, just by watching or listening, rather than formally studying it.
You can also say to notice or to absorb.
Notice just means you see it. Pick up on implies that you notice it and start to understand or use it yourself. For example, kids pick up on new languages very quickly when they play together.
Then Olivia suggested a great practice method. She said, a great way to practice that at home is to think out loud.
To think out loud means to speak your thoughts as they happen, talking to yourself so you can practice forming sentences.
You can also say to vocalize your thoughts or to speak your mind.
Vocalize your thoughts is quite scientific or formal. Think out loud is very casual. Like, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud trying to remember where I left my keys.
Nearing the end, Olivia gave a warning. She said, you have to be patient. You cannot force it.
To force it means to try to make something happen before it is naturally ready to happen. It means pushing too hard.
You can also say to push too hard or to rush the process.
Rush the process focuses on time. Force it focuses on the unnecessary pressure you put on yourself. Like, if the conversation is dying, just let it end. Don't force it.
And finally, the magic moment. Olivia said, suddenly all the pieces click.
To click means that something suddenly makes complete sense or suddenly starts working perfectly.
You can also say, it all makes sense, or it falls into place.
It makes sense is logical. It clicks describes that sudden physical feeling of a light bulb turning on in your brain. For example, I studied the present perfect for weeks, and yesterday it finally clicked. And that connects to our big idea for today. Learning to think in English isn't about perfectly switching your brain over. It is about slowly letting go of the pressure. The goal of speaking isn't perfection, it is connection. When you stop worrying about the dictionary in your head, the words will finally start to click.
Beautifully said. Now, before we go, we want to remind you of our engagement question. When you practice speaking by yourself, do you talk out loud in the shower, or do you practice silently in your head before you sleep? Put your answers in the comments below.
And if you enjoyed this kind of episode, let us know. We can make more like this. We love reading your feedback.
That is all for today. Remember, take care of your English.
And take care of your heart. Bye, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Liam. See you next time.